On the morning I was supposed to marry Ethan, the little prot who'd always adored him, Stella, crashed her Aston Martin. He flung the bridal bouquet to the floor, U-turned his car, and sped towards St. Camilla's Hospital. His text read, "Aurora, let's pick another date. A wedding small, a life is everything." It wasn't the first time he'd abandoned me for Stella. I uncapped my favorite, fiercest lipstick, painted my mouth crimson, and gave my reflection a slow, deliberate smile. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. Makeup, bewildered, asked, "Bride-to-be, are we still doing this?" I slid into my wedding gown and kept pinning pearls into my hair. Then I opened iMessage and pinged Ethan sworn, "Sebastian, we're still doing this." The news that Ethan had bolted from the altar to play knight-errant for his little prot reached me while I was mid-mascara. I didn't even blink. "Keep going," I told Makeup. My father wanted blood. After 3 decades in the Riverside Towers, Charles Sterling could make hedge fund kings bow. Yet today his own daughter had handed the city its juiciest scandal. Reschedule? The bastard sings pretty, but when this leaks, what happens to you? He pressed a hand to his chest, glanced at me, swallowed the rest, and waved it away. "Aurora, I don't need much, I just want you happy. If this is what you chose, be strong enough to wear the fallout." For years I'd chased Ethan like a fool. He loved deep-sea fishing, so I hunted down the rarest rods, chartered the sleekest yacht, just to see him relax. Only later did I notice, whatever Ethan loved, Stella loved too. One offhand comment from her and he'd move oceans. Once I realized, I cried in private, screamed in private. No matter how loud I got, his answer never changed, "Stella's my prot." I promised my professor I'd watch out for her, nothing more. I used to let that single sentence tuck me back into his pocket. I told myself a man who kept his word was a man worth loving. Even though I was his fiancée, Stella always came first. The first time Stella and I drew real blood was during a spring picnic. Under the pretext of casting a line, she sank a barbed hook into my forearm. I snapped, pain and fury blinding me, and we rolled in the dirt, clawing. Ethan hauled us apart. Stella whispered against my ear, "Let's see who he chooses." He chose her. On our wedding day, he still chose her. I lay on the field, watching him carry her to the car. He looked down at me and said, "Aurora, stop being childish." Maybe I was, but the real childish thing was loving him. Whispers from the grand ballroom leaked through the corridor. "Everyone knows Stella wants Ethan. Crashing her car today? Pure stunt to stop the ceremony. If I were the Sterling princess I'd tear up the contract, not postpone." What a joke. She's got money, face, figure, why chain herself to that jerk? A guy gets labeled fun-loving, but a woman? Desperate. And she redefined desperate. I clenched and unclenched my fists. Ethan would never hear the gossip. If he did, he'd shrug, because none of it touched Stella. He had no idea how small he'd made me feel when he drove away. I stared at the decor, an undersea kingdom of blues and silvers, every detail handpicked by Ethan. For months he'd juggled board meetings and florists, demanding perfection. My gown had been sketched by a Parisian couturier 2 years ago. Gardenius, fresh dude, flown in from Nice. Even the sapphire on my stiletto was one he'd selected. All that devotion, then he'd thrown me away. Quietly I said, "Dad, I'm not marrying him." I tugged off the engagement ring and let it roll across the marble. From this moment, I would not trail after him, would not beg. Charles's voice cracked. "You mean it?" I nodded. I dismissed Makeup and the assistants, then turned to him. "I want an alliance with the Vance family." He hesitated, gaze steady. "You're certain?" "Yes." I sent Sebastian a second message. "All right," Father said. "Whatever storm comes, I'm behind you." I finally cried, ugly, grateful sobs, against his shoulder. When he left, Mia blew in. Tears shimmered in her eyes. "Told you stubborn would bite you. Ready to chop down that crooked tree now?" She reached for the diamond necklace at my throat. "Ceremony's off. Let's unload the rocks." I caught her wrist. "Leave them. I'll still need them." She froze. "Don't tell me you're still." I hugged her hard. "Thank you for staying." The Sterling's reputation was hemorrhaging. I had to staunch it today. After years of playing Ethan's lost puppy, I'd become Riverdale's favorite late-night punchline. Enough humiliation. My text to Sebastian had been a long shot. He was mercurial, arrogant, accountable to no one. But he was the only man who could face Ethan without flinching, and the only one reckless enough to marry me. I offered him every percentage point I could carve from my inheritance. If he refused, I'd find another way. but the wedding would happen. A knock, one of Ethan's groomsmen poked his head in. "Miss Sterling, Stella's awake." "Ethan thought you'd want to know." I frowned. If she was stable, why wasn't he here? Mia voiced my question. The groomsman shifted. "She won't let the doctors near her unless Ethan stays. He's trapped." Mia snorted. "Trapped by a psycho." "And Aurora's feelings?" "Invisible, as usual. He swears he loves you, that this is torture for him. He just needs time." Mia exploded. The groomsman retreated. I felt oddly hollow, no spike of pain, just a dull void where expectation used to live. "Got it." I dismissed him. Mia and I sat at the vanity sipping oolong. She opened her mouth twice, closed it, reading the ice on my face. The door swung again, a stranger in a tailored suit grinned. "Miss Sterling, finish your face." "My boss says he'll arrive precisely when he's meant to." I lifted a brow. "Your boss is Sebastian?" A nod. "The groom's suite is already waiting. Sit tight." Out in the grand ballroom, guests lingered, assuming Ethan had slunk back. When the MC announced the groom, Sebastian stepped onto the runner. Gasps ricocheted through the room, Hawthorne elders turned purple. Sebastian's voice rang cool and clear. "I'm the man marrying Aurora today." Ethan was too blind to value her, his loss, my gain. "Anyone object?" Silence, then someone hooped, "Beautiful." Applause surged, drowning the Hawthorne protests. I took Sebastian's arm and walked the aisle I'd once pictured on Ethan's. April 22nd, Ethan's astrologically perfect date, was supposed to crown my life. Instead, it buried my old self. "Ethan, I'm marrying someone else. From here on, we travel separate highways." In the ballroom we'd chosen together, I slipped a platinum band onto a man I barely knew, let him lift my veil, kiss me while cameras flashed. When the officiate declared us wed, applause thundered. Ethan's relatives had vanished. Sebastian scooped me into his arms and carried me to awaiting black rolls. He settled me on the leather, shut the door, slid behind the wheel, and drove. Neither of us spoke. Remarkably, I didn't feel the need. The car eased through wrought iron gates and stopped before a limestone mansion lit by moon-washed fountains. He opened my door and smiled. "Welcome home, Mrs. Vance. Long time no see." Looking at the man in front of me, I felt a moment of dizziness. Someone this gorgeous ought to be illegal. Before today, we had met exactly 3 times, and each encounter had been less than pleasant. The first time was at his parents' funeral. My own parents were overseas and couldn't return, so I attended on their behalf. He knelt alone in front of the mourning brazier, mechanically bowing to every guest who came to pay respects. When I accidentally caught his eyes, they were blank with a coldness that bordered on numbness. The second time was Valentine's Day. I was shopping with Ethan. The mall was packed because it was a weekend. Stella was with us. She spotted a plushie in the claw machine and pestered Ethan to win it for her. Naturally, Ethan obliged, letting go of my hand and following her upstairs. I tried to go after them, but the escalator was so crowded I lost my balance. Someone steadied me by the waist. "Sebastian." I wanted to thank him, but when I turned, he had already disappeared. When Ethan came back, I told him about it. He said, "Steer clear of that guy if you ever run into him again, he's ruthless in business." The contempt in Ethan's voice told me they were sworn enemies. Both were titans of our world, one cool and restrained, the other proud and untamed, each convinced the other wasn't worth his time. Back then, my heart was set on Ethan. Whoever Ethan disliked, I disliked too. If he told me to avoid Sebastian, I kept my distance. After saying that, Sebastian suddenly leaned in. Startled, I stiffened, thinking he was about to kiss me, and instinctively shut my eyes. A soft laugh brushed my ear. When I opened them, he was simply reaching past me for a box. So he hadn't meant to. My cheeks burned at the misunderstanding. Sebastian, unruffled, spoke quietly. "Our marriage was sudden. I know you're not ready to be Emery yet. But I don't back out on my word, and I won't let you back out either." He paused, voice dropping colder. "Ethan's a fool, losing you will haunt him." For no reason at all, my throat tightened and tears stung. Would Ethan regret it? I couldn't say. But my first impression of the man in front of me wasn't bad at all. Marrying him might actually be nice. The next morning, Sebastian was gone from the mansion. Assuming he'd left for work, I didn't think twice. After breakfast, he reappeared. His gaze swept over me, then slid away as he approached the table. I don't keep anything for women here. I was going to have my assistant shop, but I was afraid you wouldn't like my choices. Would you come with me, Miss Sterling? His sincerity was disarming. Warmed, I smiled. Okay. Married in haste, we still knew little about each other, and conversation stalled. Finally I asked, before we shop, could we stop by my place? I need a few things. Your wish is my command, wife. I nearly choked. This playful man didn't match the icy memory I had of him. We lapsed into silence until the car ride home. As the gates of my family's mansion came into view, I opened my mouth, only for the chauffeur to brake hard. Another vehicle blocked us. I reached for the door, but a familiar voice rang out first. Sorry, I'm in a rush. Just back up and let me through. If there's any damage, call my assistant. I froze, hand halfway out, and sank back into my seat. Sebastian glanced at me, then stepped out. He clicked his tongue lazily. And if I'm feeling stubborn? When Ethan saw Sebastian, his pitch rose. Sebastian, I'm serious, I've got an emergency. Unlike you, I actually have a fiancé to apologize to. Sebastian's mouth curled. Who says I don't have a wife? She's right there in the car, we're off to shop. Ethan's brows snapped up, voice derping. Married? When? Oh right, some guys call their mistress's wife. I suddenly remembered a party gossiping about Sebastian, how driven he was, how he chewed up women who approached him, some even wondered if he preferred men. I'd asked Ethan, who'd shrugged, makes sense, he rejects every beauty, snaps at them, keeps a male assistant. If he ever married, I'd fall over. Back in the present, Sebastian drawled, yesterday. Ethan laughed under his breath. Yesterday was indeed a perfect day, one I was supposed to get married, until something came up. Buddy, please move. I'm on my way to beg my fiancée, she's probably still furious. Fiancé. So Ethan's friends hadn't told him I'd married someone else. Not that he'd notice, glued to Stella's side. He would find out soon enough. I shrank as he looked toward our car, then relaxed, our tint was too dark for him to see inside. Sebastian's lazy voice floated back, loaded with contempt, is that so? Then by all means, your errand sounds vital. He climbed back in, winked at me, and shifted into reverse. The two rivals had detested each other for years. Sebastian's sudden courtesy spooked Ethan, though he still yelled thanks. I'll have my fiancé treat Avery soon, save the date, he called, door slamming as he sped toward my mansion, only to brake again when another car screeched beside his. Out jumped Stella's assistant. Mr. Hawthorne. Stella's awake, your phone's off, she's frantic at St. Camilla's Hospital, please come. Ethan hesitated, then U-turned and headed for the hospital. He still thought I was his fiancé, thanking Sebastian for yielding. That was all he had to say. Marrying Sebastian was the only twist my short life had ever taken. But it didn't repel me or leave me anxious. Instead, a quiet anticipation fluttered beneath my ribs. That night, Sebastian carried a pillow toward the study. I caught his arm. Under the amber bedroom lights, I said pitifully, we just got married and you already want separate rooms? How will we live the rest of our lives? If you walk out tonight, what will the staff say tomorrow? He paused. Did someone say something to you? I twisted my fingers, shame creeping up my neck. Ever since I'd assumed I'd marry Ethan, I'd studied not only company management but also how to be a proper wife, how to back my husband. Theory was all I had, yet I knew how to handle employees. If I let myself be bullied, all those lessons were wasted. In the end, Sebastian stayed. I had my own motive, I didn't want a paper marriage. If we were doing this, we would be real. Step 1 was staying close. If we drifted now, we'd only drift further, defeating my purpose. The rest could wait. He took his loungewear into the bathroom. Watching his back, I felt both triumph and doubt. Triumph, he stayed, bringing a real marriage one step closer. Doubt, on our wedding day, His assistant told me Sebastian wanted none of the perks I'd offered. But the assistant never said what Sebastian did want. Was it to spite Ethan? Or had he actually wanted to marry me? We'd barely met. Lost in thought, I heard the shower roar. I crept to the half-open door hoping for a glimpse of the coming out of the shower show, but steam fogged everything. Patting my hot cheeks, I retreated. I stepped onto the terrace for night air to cool my peeping urges. When I felt composed, I headed back, only to hear the staff chatting downstairs. I never imagined Miss Sterling would be this gorgeous. Finally, our mansion's getting a real mistress. I think Miss Sterling's super down-to-earth, talks to us real soft and polite, just like Avery. Exactly. Our amazing Avery deserves a lady like her. That Hawthorne guy, though? Clearly blind. Speaking of the Hawthorns, ugh, here I go again. When I popped out for groceries at dusk, I ran into the neighbor who'd just shopped too. She said that Stella woman looks awful, like she's possessed. Rumor has it the Hawthorne heir rushed to the monastery overnight to do some prayer ritual for her. Seriously? That spooky? Spooky or not, one thing's crystal, Stella's glued to him and won't let go. Glued? Takes two to tango, babe. A monastery, the nearest one's at least 3 days drive there and back. 3 whole days. If I hadn't married Sebastian, those 3 days would have crawled past in torture. Ethan, what made you so sure that I, Aurora, couldn't live without you? Sebastian said he'd take me to dinner, and I happily agreed. The moment the private dining room's double doors swung open, a crowd of men and women inside turned to stare. I froze, clueless why he'd asked me here. Even after everyone greeted me, I was still dazed. The wedding happened fast, he murmured. Besides my closest buddies, I've got other good friends you hadn't met, so I threw this little get-together. Sorry I didn't give you a heads up. How could I blame him? My heart felt nothing but delight. Sebastian lifted his whiskey, thanking everyone for coming. Watching him work the room, I couldn't help asking, Sebastian, why did you say yes to marrying me? Because you're Ethan's sworn rival, so you married me. We'd only met a few times. After Ethan warned me off, I'd kept my distance, even skipping greetings at events. He tossed back the whiskey, pondered, then pinched my cheek. Aurora, sophomore year, who did you hand $3,000 to? I blinked. Images flashed through my mind. After dinner, when the guests were gone, only one man remained. He looked at Sebastian and me with plain relief. The man was Sebastian's graduate advisor, half a father to him. Back in school, the professor adored him, learning his family situation only deepened the fondness, and for years he'd worried because Sebastian showed zero interest in women. Meeting me, he chatted nonstop. I answered every question, respectful junior that I am. Finally he sighed, good kid. Startled, I thought, that's your verdict after a handful of sentences? Noticing my stunned look, he laughed heartily. I've heard bits of your story. You and that Hawthorne boy weren't meant to be, but you suit my protege just fine. Something cryptic glinted in his gaze, unsure what he implied. I merely nodded, yes. Outside the hotel we walked side by side toward the garage. A voice stopped us cold. I turned, Stella, alone in a wheelchair, apparently waiting ages. She glanced at me, then at Sebastian, pressed her lips, and reluctantly spoke. Avery, may I have a word with your wife? Stella, always chin up and confident, now looked anything but fearless. Sebastian didn't reply. He looked to me, my call. I nodded, and he said, all right. Once he'd stepped away, Stella exhaled. So, you're really together? Smiling, I said, yep. Sebastian's hot, loaded, marrying him, I win. She clicked her tongue, showing no trace of illness. So from the start she'd been conning Ethan. Shipping him off to the monastery last night had been pure provocation. Yet even if Ethan's phone had broken, couldn't he buy a new one? Was he dumping all his company duties? Stella supplied the answer fast. Still waiting for Ethan's call or texts? Won't happen. Meanwhile, I get his sweet check-ins daily. Want to read? Genuine tenderness, I swear. Hearing that couldn't leave me unmoved. I'd loved the man for years. My face stayed calm, but my chest twisted. Hurts, huh, she sneered. FYI, I deleted your contact in his WhatsApp, copied your avatar, and set up a fake you. By now he still hasn't noticed, because his heart's on me. So Ethan probably had texted me, and Stella erased it. Yet what good were texts if he never protected me? I smothered the sting. Sent or not, it's history. You always loved him, didn't you? Then work your magic, make him marry you. After that, your drama's none of my business. Stella arched a brow. Giving up so easily? You sure? Honestly, if Ethan weren't between us, I'd like to be friends. I admire your grit. Shame we're destined to be rivals. You like my grit, or my talent for swallowing insults? I snapped. We'd competed for years, she knew I'd never won. The first time we met I asked who he'd choose, she said. I thought he'd pick you, but I had to try, to free myself. The moment he lifted me into his arms, I swore he'd be mine. You should have quit, yet you endured forever. Ethan came from mountain poverty. Without Stella's father's guidance he'd never have clawed his way out. That debt made him guard Stella like family, shoving me, his fiancée, aside. Friends insisted he loved me. If that were true, how could he bear to watch me suffer? On post-wedding homecoming day I caught Sebastian changing outfits in front of the mirror again and again. The mighty CEO, nervous over lunch, looked ridiculous. It's just my dad. You've met him before, why panic? I teased. His hands froze on his silk tie. How could you know I wasn't nervous then? I paused, studying his profile, and memory shards slid into place. 5 years ago, sophomore year, after a department party I'd strolled to clear the alcohol haze and spotted a long-haired man digging in a trash can. When he found half-eaten bread, he stuffed it into his mouth. Alarmed, I pulled all the cash from my purse, 3,000, and pressed it into his hand. Take this, find a job, at least eat properly. Before I could say more, my phone rang. Aurora, where are you? Get here, now. Some chick's confessing to your man and he just sits there blank. Only you would pine for such a block of wood. Furious and frantic, I spun to leave. The man called after me, your name? Where can I repay you? I almost laughed. He was scavenging dumpsters yet clung to pride. If fate wants, we'll meet again. I'm Aurora, I tossed back, cool as ice. The boy clenched the bills, pushed hair from his eyes, and answered, okay. I hurried off, never imagining we'd reunite, let alone marry. My father greeted Sebastian with polite reserve. After lunch, while I scrolled on my phone, they disappeared into the study. 2 hours later Dad thumped Sebastian's shoulder like an old pal. Aurora's yours now. I can finally breathe easy. When we left, Dad whispered, looks like destiny cut you a break. You dragged home a stand-in and landed a gem, guess you're not completely blind. I chuckled, compliment or roast? Outside the mansion Sebastian extended a hand, autumn warmth in his eyes. His reflection filled his gaze, no trace of the broken boy from 5 years ago. Had he never told me, I'd never have linked him to that night. I curved my lips, laid my hand in his. He clamped down instantly, afraid I might bolt. The next second a figure sprinted up, smashing our joined hands apart. What do you think you're doing? I followed the sound and saw Ethan, hair disheveled, eyes bloodshot, glaring at Sebastian and me. With the way he looked, anyone would think I'd committed some unpardonable sin. Even now I could see his body trembling slightly. Sebastian ignored him, instead he glanced at me, lips curving. What do you think we're doing, and what business is it of yours? Impatiently Ethan yanked the silk tie away from his throat, stepped to my side, caught my arm, and patted my back. Don't be scared. I won't let another man harass you. He probably assumed Sebastian was the one bothering me. Then he planted himself between us. Avery, we all move in the same circles. Don't push things too far. You're married, act like it. Everyone here knows Aurora is my fiancée. This behavior of yours is hardly gentlemanly. I stared at Ethan's back, dazed. All these years, whenever Stella and I clashed, he had shielded her exactly like this, scolding me, lecturing me. I never imagined a day would come when he would shield me the same way. Sebastian's eyes narrowed, displeasure flashing. Huh. That's rich, talking about acting married. I'm curious, when you dumped her at the altar and kept defending your precious prot, did you remember you were an engaged man? The words froze Ethan. He spun around and gripped my shoulders. Aurora, leaving you that day was my fault, but I had no choice. Without Stella's father's help I'd never have gotten out of the mountains. I have to repay that. Besides, before he could finish, Sebastian peeled Ethan's hands off me. Stay away from Aurora. She's mine now, show some respect. Ethan froze, disbelief climbing his face. Yours? What does that mean? Cut the crap. Everyone knows Aurora's been my fiancée for 6 years. How can she suddenly be yours? He sneered and turned to me. Aurora, tell him to give up. His eyes were scarlet, lips cracked, motionless as he waited for my answer. The answer he hoped for never came. Instead, I turned, laced my fingers with Sebastian's again, and faced Ethan. I've already married Sebastian. I am his now. Ethan's mouth opened, his gaze left my face and locked on our joined hands. His body swayed in the wind, he staggered 2 steps back, then his knees buckled and he sank to the ground. Married? How could you marry someone else? You love me so much. Could it be that very day we were supposed to wed? Aurora, how dare you? That date was for us, yet you married another. Why? Tell me why. I nodded. Yes, why? You tell me. If you truly cared, how could you abandon me at the ceremony? And how could you stay silent all these days after? Stella's call had panicked him then, but what about afterward? 3 whole days. If he'd bothered to ask, he'd have known I was already married. Yet he hadn't. While he worried over Stella, anxious, racing miles for a prayer ritual, what had been on his mind? He had poured every ounce of concern into her, standing outside the oar, begging heaven to let her recover. He told himself, just this last time, he had done enough for Stella, repaying the debt, being a friend, this would be the end. Once he married, he would stop involving himself in her life. And Aurora? Aurora loved him, she would wait. After all, she held a place in his heart. Watching the play of emotions across Ethan's face, I said nothing. Hand in hand with Sebastian, I started toward the garage. Behind us Ethan shouted, desperate. So what if you're married? Marriages can be undone. I'll beg your father, he'll support us. I stopped, frowning. I wouldn't let him harass Dad. Ethan, you're making a fool of yourself. Besides, marrying Sebastian feels right. Divorce isn't on my mind. At that, the man beside me slipped an arm around my waist and looked down at Ethan. You probably don't know, our marriage has Charles's blessing. Even if you go to him, it's useless. Do yourself a favor and give up. At Sebastian's words Ethan's supporting arm gave way, he collapsed, utterly disheveled. Seeing his bloodshot eyes and crumpled state, I guessed he had rushed back without rest, but too late. As the car passed him, I glanced out. He lay motionless on the ground, nothing like his usual polished self. A short distance away Stella was running toward us, calling something, probably Ethan's name. I looked away. When I turned, I caught Sebastian studying me with calm amusement. Wife, how long do you intend to keep holding my hand? I glanced at our interlaced fingers. When had we switched hands? Must have been his idea, but I couldn't back down now. I'll hold my husband's hand as long as I like. A soft laugh rumbled from him, that low cello voice answering, good. A few days later a friend told me Ethan was sick. Whiskey had landed him in St. Camilla's hospital. Stella refused to leave, keeping vigil at his bedside. But soon after, the friend updated me, Ethan had woken and the first thing he did was throw Stella out. They had a huge fight. Somehow Ethan learned that Stella's car crash on his wedding day had been staged. By then everything clicked. Stella had milked his gratitude to deceive him. Word spread through the circle and became juicy gossip. Ethan cut off the so-called friends who'd helped fool him. Once he recovered, he came to the mansion and shouted at the gates, I want to see Aurora. I want to see Aurora. Over and over, nothing else. Sebastian wasn't home. Butler came to me, troubled. Madam, Mr. Hawthorne keeps demanding to see you. Rain's coming, shall we let him keep yelling? I rose and went to the window. Droplets had begun to fall. I took an umbrella and walked out. This had to end. Ethan stood there, forehead beaded with sweat yet back ramrod straight. He looked haggard, noticeably thinner, his old clothes hung loose. Speak. Why insist on seeing me? You broke the engagement, now you come crawling back. What do you want? Did my sudden departure make you realize you love me, that Stella was only about gratitude? Or do you think I shouldn't have married Sebastian, that I should have let guests ridicule me, let every dynasty mock the Sterlings, while I begged like a stray dog for scraps of your affection? My words struck him. He kept his gaze on me, repeating, that's not it. He wanted to say he hadn't meant to discard me. I stepped closer. I remember when you left the mountains you scored first in the county. Even after moving to the city you outpaced everyone. Teachers called you a prodigy. You've heard praise your whole life, haven't you? Ethan nodded, bewildered. These facts were common knowledge in our circle, and I, who had studied every detail of his life, knew them by heart. He understood that, so he wondered why I brought it up. I went on. Then tell me, brilliant as you are, why did you leave me in such humiliation? Forget the wedding for a moment, just look at today. He'd created a scene at the mansion gates, howling like a madman. Who knew how many eyes were watching, how much fresh gossip would circulate by tomorrow? The tale of two men fighting over one woman would probably be trending by dawn. He was brilliant, yet he never thought of me. Ethan froze, dry lips quivering. I'm sorry. I just missed you so much. You blocked my calls, my iMessage. I only wanted to see you. His anguish almost drew pity from me, almost. I bit it back. This was the price he paid. The raindrops grew heavier. Butler hurried over. Madam, it's going to pour. Please come inside. I shook my head. Go in. Rain streamed down Ethan's cheeks. He ignored it, staring brokenly. If I hadn't left you that day, you'd be my wife now. I typed, but there are no what-ifs. The moment you trampled the Sterling family's face into the dirt, we were finished. Go. I'd rather we never meet again. Ethan refused to leave. He clung to the mansion's wrought iron gates, jaw clenched. Even if there are no what-ifs for us, what about you and Sebastian? You really think he'll treat you well? You've known him, what, a minute? Does that compare to 6 years of us? You'd rather marry him than glance back at me? I looked straight into his eyes and nodded. Yes, because I've already glanced back too many times. That Springfield trip, when you left with Stella, my arm was bleeding. You said you'd walk her to the car and come right back for me. I never saw you again. What I got was an arm almost ruined beyond repair. And you? Because Stella claimed I hit her and it scared her, you spent the whole night coddling her in the hospital, right where she confessed her feelings. Ethan shot back, but I didn't accept. Sure, you didn't. So she was traumatized, and you had to comfort her, stay with her. Ethan's mouth opened, then closed. No words. I smiled thinly. That winter, blizzard, fresh off a flight, you told me cabs were scarce and to wait. You even called en route, then went dark. Later I learned Stella had twisted her ankle on the ice. You really had no 30 seconds to text? I waited at the airport all night, sick with worry. Last year's gala, my custom gown, weeks with a designer. Stella took a fancy to it. You never asked, just handed it over. It's only clothes, you said. I'll have 10 more made. But the one I wanted was gone. What use were the other 10? And that dinner the year before, I sighed. Forget it. The list is endless. You've always known how Stella felt. You just enjoyed 2 women fighting over you. Well, I'm out. Marry her, what more could you want? After Ethan left, I had barely sat down when the butler's voice drifted from the entrance. Avery, you're back. I glanced up to find Sebastian, hair wind-tossed from running. Guilt twinged in me. Ethan came by today, I said. I sent him off. He won't be back. Sebastian exhaled, relief wrapped in faux carelessness. That's all? I'm not worried. The day he fell and you didn't look back, I knew you were done. I'm not the petty type. I gave him a flat look. If you're so generous, why race home? He froze, cheeks tinged pink. Rubbing his face, he pivoted. I'm free tomorrow, how about a spring picnic? A picnic, with the CEO? Sounded perfect. I agreed. I assumed the next few days meant later, yet the next morning he and the butler were already loading the car. The spot he chose was idyllic, green, sun-dappled, alive with laughter. Back with Ethan, whenever I'd begged for just the 2 of us to escape on a picnic, he'd agree, then tease that I was childish, too fond of play. I hadn't minded. I'd keep dreaming of the perfect sunny day. I dreamed and scouted for 5 years, yet that day never came. In the end, I had Stella to thank for finally getting me here. Sebastian handed me a water bottle. On his left hand I noticed a raised red mole. Memory flooded back, that same spring trip. Ethan never returned, I'd fainted from blood loss. In the haze, someone in black had lifted me. My fingers had brushed a tiny protrusion on his hand, what I thought was a wart. When I woke in St. Camilla's hospital, a nurse said a very handsome man had brought me in. I'd tried to find him, but her clues were too vague. Around that time word spread that Sebastian, aloof and cutting, had torn Stella apart at a banquet, sparing her no shred of dignity. Soon people whispered he disliked women, maybe even preferred men. Seeing that mole now, linking the incidents, it felt as though everything he'd done had been for me. Days later Mia called. Stella, pressuring Ethan to marry her and rebuffed, had tried to drug him into a fait accompli. He didn't fall for it. Then she feigned illness, hoping he'd play nurse as always. Instead he flew overseas with his assistant overnight, abandoning his company. The gossip circles exploded, no one could decode Ethan's move. 2 days on, I spotted Stella at Riverside. Layers of powder couldn't hide her haggard face. She approached, voice low. "Can you contact Ethan? He's ditched everything to escape me. I love him. I don't want to destroy him. He worked so hard to build his life. Please." I studied her misery and shook my head. "This is between you two. I'm ancient history. He's an adult, that empire is his lifeblood. Do you really think either of us outranks it? He knows exactly what he's doing." Stella froze. I turned to leave. Behind me she screamed, "Aurora! Don't you want to know what Ethan texted you?" I didn't break stride, just lifted a hand in farewell. Whatever he wrote, however pretty, we could never go back. The night Sebastian took me to the charity gala, I saw Ethan, no Stella in sight. Mia murmured, "Stella set up a goodbye dinner, swore she'd vanish after." Ethan showed, she tried the drug trick again. He didn't play nice, dumped her in the bed of that bi-curious Mr. Davis everyone knows. If Ethan had been that ruthless earlier, you'd have suffered far less. I said nothing, only watched Ethan drain one whiskey after another. After a moment I decided it was boring and looked away. Midway, Sebastian was summoned elsewhere. Bored, I hunted for snacks with Mia when a staffer approached. "Miss Sterling, Avery is waiting in the courtyard garden." I thought nothing of it and headed outside. Along the corridor Ethan appeared, cigarette between his fingers, eyes fixed on me. I pivoted to take another route. "Aurora, it's me." I used Avery's name. "Just let me speak. Do you hate me this much? Stella will never bother us again." Can't we? I faced him, ice in my voice. "Do you honestly think that's possible?" Ethan buried his head in his hands, sobbing. "Aurora, I was so wrong. I told myself loving you was enough, I never thought about how you felt." I rolled my eyes, empty words. "Finished? May I go?" His body locked, the weeping stopped. He laughed, an ugly, broken sound. Silence swallowed the corridor, echoing with that laugh. When it grew unbearable, I left. The moment I stepped away, the laughter died. Later I heard Ethan had sold his company and disappeared, no one could reach him. As for me, exiting the garden, I found a man waiting, a woman's purse hooked over his arm. When he spotted me, a grin lit his face. He offered his elbow. "Aurora, when you wander off alone, file a flight plan, all right? Remember, you've got a man now." I nodded, smiling. "Got it. Thanks for listening to today's story. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate it? If you enjoyed this video, please like and share with friends. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more gripping tales. See you next time.